It started to stream on YouTube.
Okay, let's start then. So I'm going to sing from the Sadgoswami Astakam, a couple of verses, and then we'll start the class. Krishna Kirtana Gana Natana Paro Premamritambo Nidhi Dira Dira Jana Priyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito Shri Chaitanya Kripa Paro Bhuvi Bhuvo Paravantarako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyako Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyako Jiva Gopalako. Let me just get this here. Nana Shastra Vicharana Kanipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanamita Karano Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padada Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyako Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyako Jiva Gopalako Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Bhaktacharitatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Srimad Gaura Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srimad Gaura Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srimad Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And Jai Om Vishnu Pad Bhagavan Prabhupada Asatana Sati Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Kanda Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Sad Goswami Ki. All glories some of the devotees, all glories some of the devotees, all glories some of the devotees, all glories Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. So, translation of the first two verses, Sad Goswami Asagam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatt Das Goswami, who are always engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and dancing. They are just like an ocean of love of God, and they are popular both with the gentle and the ruffians. Because they are not envious of anyone, whatever they do, they are all pleasing to everyone, and they are fully blessed by Lord Chaitanya. And thus, they are engaged in the mission activities meant to deliver all the conditioned souls in the material universe. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are fully absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapidam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Sa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ladita Shri Vishakamikam Scha Vanchakopatubhishta Kipasindubheva Japatiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnava Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone. Today we're again going to be going into the Nectar of Devotion, chapters 15 and 16, which is a translation commentary by Srila Prabhupada of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. So the 11th verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, first chapter, is our focus of the type of definition here of what is devotional service. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. And the next verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit's soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So welcome everyone. This week we're having classes on chapters 15 and 16, and next week will be the final class in the series. We probably need to discuss what, if anything, we will continue on after this. There is a final exam available for those who wish to take it and get some credit for this course, and that will be posted after next week's class. Next week's class is going to be a little bit rushed because I have a mandatory conference call I have to be on at 3:45. So, but I think the topic of Prema Bhakti is one that we can cover perhaps a little quickly. This week in review, From last week, we covered the 64 items of sadhana bhakti. We discussed the importance of the 5 potent forms of devotional service. We discussed the relevance of sadhana bhakti to varnashram dharma and jnana and vairagya. And we discussed aspects of Prabhupada's mission that reflect the principle of yukta vairagya. So in particular, varnashram dharma and sadhana bhakti, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29, the Lord says, one should execute the prescribed duties of varna and ashram as long as he has not developed spontaneous attachment for hearing about my pastimes and activities. All of these things are recommended for persons who have not developed Krishna consciousness. So far as we are concerned, Krishna consciousness, so long our bodily concept of life is not completely eradicated, we must follow the swadharma of the body, like Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So then Prabhupada gave a program here for rapid spiritual advancement. He gave us the 5 most potent items as pillars on which he built the spiritual program of ISKCON. And these 5 most potent items are chanting Hare Krishna, daily Srimad Bhagavatam class, lavish deity worship, Guru Puja for serving a devotee, and the establishment of extensive facilities in Mayapur and Vrindavan. Any one of these items can quickly arouse Bhava Bhakti, even in a neophyte. However, these powerful items will not bestow their effects as long as one commits offenses. So although they're powerful, if we are committing offenses against the holy name or against seva offenses or offenses against holy dham, we will not experience these effects. Thus, a devotee who wants to make rapid advancement should focus on these 5 potent items and very diligently avoid offenses, especially offenses to Vaishnavas. Again, the 5 potent items, most potent items: worshiping the deity, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with and serving devotees, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and residing in Mathura, Vrindavan. So now we'll go over them again a little briefly. I'm going to speak a little quickly because there's a lot of material today. Srila Rupa Goswami composes a beautiful metaphor to illustrate the efficacy of deity worship. And he says, my dear friends, if you still have any desire to enjoy the company of your friends within the material world, then don't look upon the form of Krishna, who is standing on the bank of Keshi Ghat. He is known as Govinda, and his eyes are very enchanting. He is playing on his flute, and on his head is a peacock feather, and his whole body is illuminated with the moonlight in the sky. So this is a type of metaphor which seems to praise what it tends to condemn, and condemn what it seems to praise. So we've been instructed to see the deity of Govinda in Vrindavan, and to be indifferent to attractions to the material world. This indifference is actually a symptom of Bhava Bhakti. And seeing the deity can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. Next item, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So the denunciation of liberation is a characteristic of Bhava Bhakti. Srila Rupa Goswami thus shows that hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the 10th canto, can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy, bhava, even in a neophyte. So thus, hearing Bhagavatam daily is highly recommended. Serving or associating with devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami describes the rich devotional sentiments of a devotee in whose heart the Lord has appeared. Quote, It is very astonishing that since I have seen this personality of Godhead who is washed by the tears of my eyes, there is shivering in my body, and he has made me a failure in executing my duties. Since seeing him, I cannot remain silently at home. I wish to go out to him always. So again, tells us how we can achieve Bhava Bhakti by seeing the form of Lord. But actually what it's talking about is associating with devotees who are enriched with devotional symptoms. And that has tremendous potency to inspire one's Krishna consciousness. Living in Mathura, Vrindavan, Jiva Goswami says, transcendental realizations of beauty and bliss indicate mental realization of one's eternal serving mood, Swarup Siddhi, which occurs during the stage of Bhava Bhakti. So Sri Rupa Goswami thus shows that simply by remembering Vrindavan, we can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. If simply by remembering Vrindavan can cause powerful realization, then certainly one's transcendental feelings will be immediately aroused by actually being there. Such transcendental feelings, Prabhupada said, are aroused immediately without fail after one arrives in Mathura or Vrindavan. So it's highly recommended that we make some plan in our life to visit Vrindavan, and also that would include Mayapur. Just 2 days ago, they were very mercifully avoided any big catastrophes when the typhoon hit the area. No significant damage to any of the structures. And here I keep reminding and suggesting devotees that they start understanding holy places in Vrindavan. They're called Leela Sthans, where Krishna performed different pastimes, where one goes to Vrindavan and on tour can visit these places and they can get pictures or even download pictures off the internet and print them out and post them in their house, so that when they simply by seeing them, you can be reminded of Vrindavan. Very beautiful and very powerful. The results of Bhava Bhakti, as Rupa Goswami says, are not overestimations. They are true in certain cases, but not in all. And they're intended to describe each item's potential for evoking Bhava Bhakti when executed offenselessly. Any questions about all this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question about the 10th canto, because it was said that even if neophyte is reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially 10th canto, it can invoke the feelings of bhav, but also it has been said that neophyte should not be reading the 10th canto. One should read gradually from the beginning, and basically when one gets to the 10th canto, he's not neophyte anymore. So how should we understand this?
Well, this is the incredible potency and mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Very early on in this movement, before he had translated very far in the Bhagavatam, he gave us Krishna book, a summary of the 10th canto. And he recommended the devotees read it regularly. So he presented this 10th canto in Krishna book in a way that we will not make offenses and not take Krishna to be a mundane personality. It's very difficult to understand Krishna in that way. So Prabhupada has made this available, the 10th canto, to us. And as you say, studying the Bhagavatam should begin with the first canto, which is Krishna's lotus feet, and gradually progress. And then again, you will find in the first canto, and to some extent in the second canto, Prabhupada put so much of the entire philosophy of Krishna consciousness into that first and second canto that practically you will get a full picture. So Prabhupada wanted us to understand things from the 10th canto in the proper way, but not to simply dwell on them and skip over everything else. Does that answer your question?
Not really. Not really at all, actually. Also, I was wondering many times, what is the main difference between the Krishna book and the 10th canto? What is given in Krishna book, which is not given in the 10th canto, or vice versa?
There is no
except the verses.
Significant difference. Obviously, Prabhupada is not giving you word for word translations there, but he is giving you the essence of everything that is described in the 10th canto, chapter by chapter. So
Well,
I think it's very
yes, because I have noticed that it's pretty much the same thing. So then I'm confused. Why is it being said that we should not be jumping into 10th canto, and Krishna book is pretty much the same thing as 10th canto? So I'm very much confused about this.
Well, the 10th canto, the instructions about 10th canto are for those who are not actually following the instruction of some guru, a bona fide Vaishnava Acharya in the parampara. Prabhupada, as the guru, is able to adjust things so that his followers can understand them without becoming offenders. So Prabhupada, as an Acharya, has that potency, that ability to give us what we may not otherwise be qualified to understand. The tendency, just like I met one lady at the university a few years ago, and I was talking to her, encouraging her to read the Bhagavatam. She says, yes, I like to go immediately to the rasa dance and read about the rasa dance. I think that's so wonderful. And this is the danger. The conditioned soul goes right to those chapters and misunderstands everything. And that we'll be talking about later today. We will be specifically talking about that kind of danger. So if you don't mind, we can go on a little further.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so Jnana and Vairagya. Again, he lost mental speculation of artificial austerities of yoga practice may be favorable for becoming liberated from material contamination, but they also make one's heart harder and harder, and they will not help at all in the progress of devotional service. I know recently I was seeing some documentary about so-called yogis of the Himalayas. I think they were mainly Buddhist, but one of their activities is they will sit in a cave in the Himalayas alone for a month or 2 months, and they will have a little area, a box like defined on the ground, and they do not move out of that box for 1 month. Somebody will bring them their food and they have some way to take care of their body, but they don't move out of that box for 1 month. And they're also not supposed to really fall asleep. And so it's a very difficult austerity, and very few are able to do. But it doesn't help for devotional service. They seem to be happy that they got some feeling of liberation and maybe even some mystic powers, but it's not helping them to become devotees of Krishna. So, Yukta Varga, one should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is the secret of devotional service. Anything can be used in advancing in Krishna consciousness and should be accepted as devotional service. So we try to use things for Krishna's service. And finally, we talked about worshiping the Tulsi tree by pouring water or by offering obeisances. All our sinful reactions are removed. Tulsi leaves offered to lotus feet of Krishna will help us develop love of Godhead. So, any other questions? So now we are going to proceed on to chapters 15 and 16, which are talking about spontaneous devotional service, particularly Ragatmika Bhakti. Rupa Goswami has defined raga, and please note this is a definition, as spontaneous attraction for something while completely absorbed in thoughts of it with an intense desire of love. So that's the definition of raga. Complete absorption with a desire of love. Spontaneous attraction. So raga indicates intense attachment. And atmika, the very essence of what one's consciousness is this intense attachment. Devotional service executed with such feelings of spontaneous love is called Ragatmika Bhakti. Next devotion, page 119. Ragatmika Bhakti Mukhya Vrajavasi Jane. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. From Chaitanya Charitamrita. Again, now we're talking about Raganuga Bhakti, a different term. Tara Anugata Bhaktira Raganuga Name. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. So we talked about that last week, coming to that stage of following in the footsteps. Great devotee. So, Raganuga Bhakti. Again, Ragamai Bhakti Rahai, Ragatmika Nama, Ta Shuni Labda Haya Kona Bhagyavan. Thus, devotional service, which consists of raga, deep attachment, is called Ragatmika, spontaneous, loving service. If a devotee covets such a position, he is considered to be most fortunate. So we'll see, sometimes a devotee is described or mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, with his deep, spontaneous, loving attachment. Very fortunate. And Ragatmika Bhakti, spontaneous love for Krishna, described in chapters 15 and 16. Raganuga Bhakti, which is called following Ragatmika Bhaktis, is chapter 16. Hopefully you've read this. If not, please make an effort to do so. So literally, Ragatmika means one whose very essence, Atma, is intense attachment for Krishna, Raga. Another further definition, Raga also means color. Wearing red-colored eyeglasses cause one to see red everywhere. Similarly, when one has extremely intense attachment, he sees the object of his obsession everywhere, all the time. So we've heard also in the Bhagavatam about seeing Krishna everywhere. One who has intense obsession and attachment to Krishna, he will see Krishna everywhere. This there is no doubt. The passions of this world, this again Ragatmika, are only weak and perverted reflections. Real raga is the passionate obsession with pleasing Lord Sri Krishna. The passion to serve Krishna consumes the devotee's consciousness to such an extent that they cannot even think of anything else under any circumstance. So again, another glorification of how intense this attachment, this concentration is. And it's a natural one, it's not forced. It comes because their heart is very pure and clean. And so the description here is saying that in this world, material world, we see that people do have passionate obsessions, especially romantic obsessions. But that is a very weak and perverted idea of what actually is going on with Ragatmika. It's so much more intense, so much more sweeter, free from any iniquities, and it is completely selfless. So here we have Krishna's Vasran Leela, where he has stole the clothes of the gopis. Actually, Krishna was pretty young when this happened. And the gopis, by going and retrieving their clothes from Krishna, Krishna was fulfilling their desire to accept him as their husband. Only a husband can see a woman without all her clothes on. So Krishna was fulfilling that desire. There was no perversion in this. So here again is the problem with neophytes and conditioned souls. The conditioned souls means that they interpret things by his experience. Conjugal affairs, the romantic activities of men and women, such as dancing and embracing, are manifestations of lust in this world. He hears the pastimes of Radha, of Krishna and the gopis, and he misinterprets everything, the text of mundane lust. So this is why they should not go to the chapters of the Rasa dance and Krishna's Leela with the gopis, because they misinterpret what's going on there. They have no background to understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They think, oh, this is just some romantic activities. The devotee with genuine realization and bhakti sees that they are really, these activities of Krishna are really pure exchanges of unalloyed love. The gopis' internal motivation is radically different from mundane lovers, although externally they may appear similar. So the gopis' mood is not at all like that of a mundane lover. Totally different. They are simply desiring to completely please Krishna and serve him completely. So material versus spiritual lust. Prabhupada says it's iron versus gold. Selfish desires is what motivates material lust. Selfless desires create spiritual lust. And in the mundane world, everything is selfish, where in the spiritual world, every action is selfless, exclusively for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. Here is again the difference. The gopis are consumed and obsessed by a passion to satisfy Krishna. This is why Uddhava was recommended by Krishna to go and visit Vrindavan and specifically understand the activities of the gopis. So the gopis, by the force of their obsession, their passion to serve Krishna, is beyond our ability to comprehend. We can't understand that level of obsession they have to please Krishna. And by comparing it to mundane lust, the single most consuming and overwhelming urge in our experience, we may catch the slightest hint of the intensity of the gopis' desire to serve Krishna. So it is mentioned different places that the gopis had lust for Krishna, or their lusty relationship, but it is not the mundane lust. It is, the word lust is used by Prabhupada and others simply to tell us that it is a very, very overwhelming and powerful feeling they have to satisfy Krishna. And it's completely selfless. So we must very carefully understand that Krishna's conjugal love affairs are impeccably transcendental. Nothing mundane in them. Externally, they may resemble mundane lusts, but internally, they are motivated exclusively by pure, selfless prema. So, do we have any questions, comments, doubts, other thoughts on these topics? I hope everyone is still with us. So here we see the picture of the Rasa dance, which is called the epitome of Krishna's relationships with the gopis. And Krishna there expanded himself into thousands of forms, so he was personally dancing with each gopi. And it was an incredibly personal, intimate exchange of love between Krishna and his gopis. And of course, it is the most wonderful and highly elevated activity of Krishna, exchange with the living entity. Uddhava, after understanding the moods of the gopis, does anyone know what he prayed for?
To become a creeper or grass in Vrindavan so that he could get the dust of their lotus feet.
Yes, he just wanted, because he appreciated the depth of their devotion. And let's not misunderstand Uddhava. Uddhava was known in Dwarka as Krishna's greatest devotee. From practically his childhood, he would only wear clothes that had been worn by Krishna, only eat food that is first tasted by Krishna. He was completely sold out. In fact, he even looked like Krishna. He was completely sold out to Krishna in devotional mood. But Krishna sent him to Vrindavan to study the gopis. And when he actually saw the intensity of their love, he prayed to become grass or creeper so that he would catch a little bit of their dust and thereby have his consciousness further elevated. He was like the most perfect devotee in Dwarka, but he wanted to be further elevated by getting the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. It is an extremely highly revered description of Krishna's activities, the Rasa dance. So there are two types of Ragatmika Bhakti. The Kama Rupa is described in the 15th chapter of Nectar Devotion. Sensual attraction, meaning conjugal love. And then there's Sambandha Rupa, the relationship, a relationship kind of love, Ragatmika Bhakti, the spontaneous love, as exhibited by Krishna's parents, Krishna's friends, Krishna's servants. And that is described in chapter 16. So Ragatmika, this spontaneous love, is exhibited by both the gopis and Krishna's parents, his friends, the servants. Everyone in Vrindavan has this spontaneous love. But Rupa Goswami breaks it down into two categories, specifically because he feels that he wants to give special attention to the love of the gopis. It's so highly elevated. And there we see Krishna with his cowherd friends. This scene bewildered even Lord Brahma. Krishna was sharing his food with his friends, and they were biting the food that their mothers gave them and then sharing it with Krishna. And when Lord Brahma saw that, he was like, this Krishna, he cannot be God. no one could give them food that they've already tasted. That would be a great offense. He did not understand this mood, this Ragatmika mood of the presidents of Vrindavan. And thus, he created an offense. Here we have Mother Jashoda with Krishna. She has such an intense attachment to Krishna that is difficult to describe. When Krishna goes to the forest in the morning with the cows or the calves, she practically tries to stop Krishna again and again from going any further. And she tries to ensure all his well-being and protection and so many things and comfort. And still, Krishna finally says, all right, mother, I'm going now. And he goes into the forest. Every day it's like that. Every day, such is her attachment. Intense, loving attraction and attachment. So Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. Kama, lusty desire, Rupa, like. So the material Kama is intense thirst to satisfy one's own senses, and spiritual Kama is the intense thirst to satisfy Krishna's spiritual senses. If you get a chance to meet some of the pujaris, like in Alachua or some other big temples, you can get a little bit of sense of this in the pujaris. The regular dedicated pujaris have an incredible attachment to serving the deities and doing everything perfectly for the deities for their pleasure and decorating Krishna perfectly. And their whole consciousness is simply amazing. And that comes out when you see the deities in Alachua, for example. Their beauty, their pleasure, you might say, is just immediately noticeable to even the most neophyte. Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakta. So Kama Rupa consists of devotees with intense desire to satisfy the Lord in conjugal love. Sambandha Rupa, again, consists of devotees with intense desire to satisfy Krishna as the parent, friend, or intimate servant. Although conjugal love, Kama, is also a type of relationship like parent, friend, intimate servant, Srila Rupa Goswami gives it a separate category to emphasize its preeminent position. It is so lofty and so elevated that he is glorifying it by giving it a special focus. Then Prabhupada gives this statement: no necessity to discuss. Srila Rupa Goswami presents the subject of Ragatmika Bhakti only briefly. And Srila Prabhupada says, in the stage of devotional service where regular principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this love, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. So those who want to go into deeper discussions about these things, and they're still struggling to follow the regular principles, struggling to keep regulation, control their mind and senses, there's no need for them to discuss this with any detail, because they will not understand it. The gopis' ecstatic love for Krishna is sometimes described by scholars as being like lusty desire of the material world. But actually, this should not be taken as a literal fact. Again, the same repetition. It is not the lusty desire of the material world. It is simply a way of trying to understand the transcendental situation from Nectar of Devotion. Sambandha Ragatmika, Sambandha Rupa Rati. Spontaneous love of Krishna in the parental relationship is found both in the denizens of Dwarka, who belong to the dynasty of Vrishnis, and among the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So both the Dwarkavasis and the Vrajavasis have this type of spontaneous parental relationships, like we see in Vasudeva and Devaki, as well as Nanda and Jashoda. They're both classified in this spontaneous level. One point must be repeatedly stressed, and that's what we're doing again, so please bear with us, that a Raganuga devotee is above the regulative principles. That means they are not dependent on scriptural injunction for their inspiration to serve and surrender. So we hear, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Brajaham Tvam Sarva Papevya Mokshishmi Mahasucha. Just surrender unto me, Krishna says in the Bhagavatam. So these devotees don't need to focus on that because they've already given their heart. Their inspiration comes from their own spontaneous affection. They already have spontaneous affection for Krishna. So you don't have to ask them to surrender. They already will surrender everything and anything for Krishna. So this does not mean that Raganuga Bhakta does not follow the regular principles. It means rather that their motivation is love, raga, not just obligation. So the neophyte feels an obligation. He is ordered by his guru, follow these principles. He's ordered by the Shastra, do this, don't do that. But the Raganuga Bhakta just wants to please Krishna, and that is such a strong motivation that he does everything correctly. So let us stop here for a moment and ask if any questions, because we're covering a lot of material here, but it's somewhat repetitive.
So the Prabhu, in the Raganuga Bhakti, so then the gopis comes under this bhakti, like because they are transcendental, so they don't need to go through all this.
The gopis are spontaneously
Oh,
have affection for Krishna. So those, we're talking Raganuga devotee who is following them, following the gopis, or the servants of the gopis, or the servants of the servants of the gopis. And their intensity of love for Krishna, because their heart is completely pure, is so strong that they're constantly simply thinking how to please Krishna. Their every act, their every thought, their every word is how to please Krishna. Does that answer your question?
yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question, comment?
So Prabhuji, like Krishna's wives, they come under which bhakti, Prabhuji?
Krishna's wife is who?
Wives like Satyabhama, Rukmini, those come under which?
So what's the question about Satyabhama?
So Krishna's wives, they come under like Raganuga Bhakti. There are two types, right? Sambandha Bhakti.
Yes, definitely. It's not quite on the same level as the gopis, but it is spontaneous, yes. They're not sitting there like, okay, I've got to chant so many rounds so I know what to do with Krishna's wife. Or I have to be, careful that I follow the regular principles so I don't displease Krishna. No, they're not thinking like that. They're already deeply motivated, just like Rukmini. We have that example. She wrote a letter on just days before her marriage to planned for Shishupal, that I've only planned to marry you, Krishna, all the time. Please come and rescue me. I cannot tolerate having to marry this Shishupal. Please come and take me away. Because her attachment, her love for Krishna was so great. And she had never met Krishna at that point. She had only heard about him. So she had such spontaneous love for Krishna that she only wanted to marry Krishna. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Other questions, comments, doubts?
So Ragatmika is higher than Raganuga, Prabhuji?
No, Ragatmika is the desire to follow those who are Raganuga devotees. Isn't that what we just discussed?
Ragatmika is the highest level. Ragatmika are those who follow the highest level.
So let me go back here. Let's go back and make sure everyone's got this right. Ragatmika. And here we have Ragatmika means one whose very essence is intense attachment for Krishna. Okay? So we have here Ragatmika, spontaneous love for Krishna, and Raganuga bhaktis, were the ones that are following the Ragatmika bhaktis. So the Ragatmika would be the residents of Vrindavan, the Raganugas are those devotees who are following them. Sometimes it's a little easy to get them mixed up because we're no experience of either one.
So when one becomes very, very advanced in Krishna consciousness, one will spontaneously become attracted to the activities of one of the residents of Vrindavan. That's the Ragatmika. And you follow their example and learn more about their life and learn how to serve Krishna by understanding what they do in any position, whether one's a cowherd boy or wants to be motherly affection, or if one wants to be following the gopis.
Does that answer your question?
Prabhuji. And these are like in what stages? Is it like the bhava stage or the prema stage or?
Well, the Ragatmika bhaktas are obviously in the prema stage, but this beginning to follow them can happen after one is past anartha nivritti. It mainly begins in the level of bhava, where one becomes a little aware of his relationship with Krishna. And then after he proceeds beyond bhava bhakti, then he can focus on, he understands spontaneously what is his relationship. So he focuses on worshiping those devotees that help him in his relationship. But that is far away from us at this stage. Is that okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank
Any
you,
other
Mataji.
questions, comments?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My question is, if the mood of worship or relationship of the disciple, the sadhaka, depends also on the mood of worship or relationship of his Guru Maharaj towards Krishna, if it's connected.
Not necessarily.
Because in one lecture I heard that the disciple cannot develop higher mood of worship than his Guru Maharaj.
There are Diksha Gurus and there are Shiksha Gurus. So one, when he gets to that higher level, generally is taking Shiksha from someone who can guide them in that particular mood. Whether it's his Diksha Guru or not will be found at that point in time.
So disciple can outgrow the mood of his Diksha Guru?
There's no question of outgrow.
I don't know how to verbalize it properly, but I just want to get my...
Just has a different rasa.
Yeah, well,
Different
sure, but
type of relationship.
yes,
So
but
he
there are like
doesn't-
higher and lower rasas, right?
Yes, but like
In a transcendental sense, not in a material sense.
Yes, of course, of course.
but it's not a matter about grow. It's just that he goes to someone who is equipped to give him the instruction he needs.
Otherwise, everybody would be stuck on the same platform as Lord Brahma, because we're all ultimately our highest guru is Lord Brahma. We're in the Brahma
Yeah.
Sampradaya. So
Anytime
that would
you're
be,
welcome.
he would have to be the highest of all the devotees, but it doesn't work like that.
But we are followers of Rupa Goswami.
Yes, we are followers of Rupa Goswami. That is correct. Anyway, to some extent, we are trying to discuss something that is far out of our range. It's nice to talk about it, but it's not something that we can practically act on. But the fact of the matter is, Prabhupada said everything will be revealed to you at the appropriate time. When you are qualified, Krishna will reveal.
And sometimes you have to understand, sometimes we can ask a question that we're not qualified yet to understand the answer for. We can ask very intimate questions about relationship with Radha and Krishna, or about whether we fell from the spiritual world or we didn't, but we might not be qualified to really understand the proper answer.
It's not an academic exercise, to be sure. And it is not something that we can speculate and just say, okay, I want to do this now and let me try it. It doesn't work like that, not at all. That's why I keep saying you have to be qualified before you go into the higher levels of bhakti, into these higher practices.
Hare Krishna, can I respond, please?
I guess so, sure.
So if one's Guru Maharaj is in Shantaras,
Okay.
is it very possible that his disciple can develop Madhurya Ras? You know,
Yeah.
I'm asking this because I mean these are the topics that we are discussing. So I just want to make sure that it's clear for everyone.
Yeah,
Because
but
if this is like important thing, then people should consider like.
what do you mean his guru? Just define it. You're jumping back and forth. What do you mean his guru? He has only one guru. That's it. Finished.
No.
other gurus?
No. I mean, Prabhuji,
So then what?
I'm asking about like accepting initiating guru.
Okay.
If disciple of that
Rupa
guru can.
Goswami says we have many different gurus. Why is it only the initiating guru can do something?
I don't know, Prabhuji. I'm asking. I'm sorry. I don't know
No,
how to
it
verbalize
doesn't
this
work like
properly.
that. It doesn't work like that. And in one sense, that if you have that question, you should ask your own initiating spiritual master and see what his response is. That will maybe satisfy you.
Prabhuji, I'm asking for the benefits of everyone participating in this call.
Oh, so you already know the answer. Anyway, well, I know one time devotees went to Srila Prabhupada. A devotee went to Prabhupada and they asked him, Prabhupada, what is your rasa, what is your relationship with Krishna? And it is well known what Prabhupada's answer was. He said, that you do not require to know. So you have to add that on to the answer to your question.
Prabhuji, I was not. I'm not referring to this type of stuff.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandal Pranam. So, Prabhuji, once I heard that, conversation between Ramanujacharya and Yamunacharya. So, Yamunacharya is the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya. But Yamunacharya told Ramanujacharya that, when he actually, Yamunacharya gave this mantra, to Ramanujacharya, and he told, don't give this to anyone. It is kind of Narayana mantra. But after seeing the suffering of the people, he came into the street and he was not able to tolerate, and he gave this mantra to everyone. And at that time, Yamunacharya became so much, very, very angry. He said that how can all these people get liberated, because you gave, now they are going to get liberated. and you are going to hell. And Ramanujacharya said, I am ready to suffer in the hell hundreds and hundreds of my lifetimes if this mantra can give, liberation to so many deceased people. Then Yamunacharya on the same spot said that, oh, I thought you are my disciple, but you are far ahead than me in spirituality and in everything. So, and also I think, in few cases, we see that even Mahaprabhu also took, initiation, and even Lord Krishna also took, Sandipani Muni as a guru. So I have seen few cases where the devotee, you know, uh, is spiritually advanced than gurus in certain circumstances. That's my understanding.
Well, that's not really the right description. He's not more spiritually advanced than a spiritual master, and he never thinks like that. That is not exactly how he thinks. And there is a whole Leela describing that kind of mood in the Shiksha disciples of Jiva Goswami. And we can go on that later because I don't know how much time I'm going to have here, but we can talk about that later. But the basic point was that this devotee had become, to the point he got personal darshan of Radharani. And his spiritual master understood, was not told, I guess, the story completely, and became very angry with his disciple. We had sent to Jiva Goswami, and he thought that Jiva Goswami had reinitiated him and so many things. So finally, when it was finally worked out, everybody was peaceful and they understood what happened. But that devotee continued to worship his original spiritual master and celebrate his Guru Puja every year, and he was very dedicated to his spiritual master and to Sri Jiva Goswami, both. So there's more to understand the principle of Guru here, but it's not a problem for any of us at this point in time. We can talk about it more later, if that's okay. Anyone else? Question, comment? So let us look here. Raganuga Bhakti. The basic qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is simply eagerness. There's Loba, which we discussed last week, which is to achieve eagerness, to achieve a particular service of a particular Ragatmika devotee. But this eagerness is not a cheap or easy to come by. This loba, or intense covetousness, refers to the state where one's sole and overwhelming desire is to please Krishna in a particular way. As long as there is some focus on some other desire in one's heart, the required intensity of focus cannot manifest. So I hope you understand what this is saying. You have to be completely free from all other desires before this desire to serve Krishna in a particular way will even manifest in the heart. Therefore, generally, Loba cannot awaken, until the devotees achieve steadiness at the completion of Anartha Nivritti. After thoroughly having heard the Bhagavatam and being freed from all unwanted desires, generally it is only then that one possesses the qualification to practice Raganuga Bhakti. So again, that is the point at which these questions come up, and Krishna will help us. The gopis for Krishna and the affection for the members of the Yadu dynasty are both accepted as spontaneous for Raganuga. That was again answering Renuka Mataji's question. Again, he analyzes the affection of the Yadus. If it is on the platform of friendship, then it is spontaneous love. But if it is on the platform of regular principles, then it is not. So he's saying that even in the yadus, if someone is performing, is having their affection for Krishna because of a result of regular principles, then it's not spontaneous. The main point is that spontaneous devotion is the best method of absorbing the mind in Krishna. The essence of sadhana is the absorption of the mind in Krishna. Again, the essence of sadhana is the absorption of the mind in Krishna. Spontaneous emotion does this more effectively than regulative practice. Example here is Kamsa and Shishupal feared and envied Krishna. But these emotions cause them to obsessively think about him and thus become purified to such an extent that they achieve the same destination as the gopis. So we're going to catch this more here. Let's go a little more deeper into this. Raganuga sadhana bhakti. So we have sadhana bhakti, practice, daily practice, devotional service. Can be called Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, which is what we are performing, or it can be a type of sadhana called Raganuga sadhana bhakti, which is of a different variety. Similar, completely similar, but different. So Raganuga sadhana bhakti, there is a stage called anartha nivritti, which means the disappearance of all material contamination. When we've completed that stage, no longer material contamination. Oh, I think we lost Maharani. It's gone. When one is actually spontaneously attracted to the loving principles of the gopis, there will be found no trace of any mundane contamination in his character. So that is what is the qualification to even think about these. Anartha nivritti has to be completely transcended and no mundane contamination. Ragana Bhakti, again, it is said by Srila Rupa Goswami, when one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. Developing such an aptitude, one will always live in Vrindavan even within his mind. Now there's 6 types of moods of a spontaneous attachment to the Lord. But there's only, these are mentioned by Narada Muni, only 2 of these are genuine spontaneous devotional service. Now listen to these. These 6 moods are 1, the lusty desire in the gopis, Gopya Kamat, the fear in Kamsa, Bayat Kamsa, the envy in Shishupal and other kings of Chaitya, Dvesha Chaitya Dayo, the kinship of the Vrishnis or the Yadus, Sambandhat Vrishnaya, the affection of the Pandavas, Snehat Yuyam, and devotional service experienced by Narada Muni, Bhakti Vayam. So fear and envy, what are these about? Clearly, fear and envy are not genuine forms of spontaneous devotion. Srila Prabhupada said the attraction of Kamsa to Krishna is in fear, and the attraction of Shishupal to Krishna is in envy. And they are not accepted as devotional service. However, because their attitudes are not favorable, they didn't love Krishna. They were against Krishna. But they're very spontaneous because they were driven day and night with their feelings and thinking about Krishna. Devotional service of Narada Muni. Narada attachment to Krishna is called Bhaktya. Jiva Goswami explains that Narada's devotional service arises from a sense of duty. To serve Krishna is his duty. Thus it is Vaidhi Bhakti and cannot be counted among the genuine forms of Ragatmika Bhakti. Then we have the affection. The affection of the Pandavas may or may not be Ragatmika Bhakti, depending on whether or not it is mixed with awe and reverence. Generally, it is mixed. Excuse me here. It is mixed with a mood of reverence, which introduces restraints of formal etiquette that hinder Ragatmika Bhakti. However, when this reverence sometimes subsides, their affection can be called Ragatmika Bhakti. Srila Prabhupada explains again, he analyzes the affection of the Yadus. If it is on the platform of friendship, then it's spontaneous love, but it's on the platform of regular principles, then it is not.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we can't see the screen.
Oh, you can't see the screen. Oh my goodness. Where did we go? Okay. Is that better? Can you see?
Yes, Prabhuji, we got it.
So again, we just talked about the Pandavas and of course the Yadus. And now we have the lusty desire and a kinship. 4 of these 6 types of attachment, envy, fear, respectful affection, and obedient devotion, have been excluded from Ragatmika Bhakti. Only in the remaining 2, lusty desire and familial relationship, are generally types of Ragatmika Bhakti. So it's the spontaneous love. Okay, something is here. Okay, let me come out of this. Is this still the right screen? You can see everything. But when he realizes his actual position in relationship with the Lord, he can, along with the discharge of regular service, think within himself of the Lord, under the guidance of a particular associate of the Lord, and develop his transcendental sentiments following that associate. So he is serving and following a particular associate, whether it's a gopi or someone else. A devotee who is actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, and this is his directive, he should not manifest himself even though he has attained perfection. So in other words, he keeps his spontaneous mood undercover. No one could see it. Nobody can understand it. Srila Prabhupada specifically gave us his example there, that no one could understand Prabhupada's inner moods. He did not discuss it. He did not show it. He kept it private. Sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena. These are the 2 differences. He should. Although he may be perfect, he acts like a sadhaka, like a practicing devotee. So Raga Marga in ISKCON. First of all, he's trying to bring the devotee to the standard of devotional service, Vidhi Marg. That's what Prabhupada's doing. He's personally bringing us to the standard of devotional service. Then gradually becomes a custom, and then Raga Marg will be revealed. Everyone has got a particular relationship with Krishna in his original constitutional position. That will be revealed gradually as you advance in devotional service and the prescribed rules and regulations as they are directed in the Shastra and by the spiritual master. Just like the sun becomes visible when the sun rises automatically. You cannot force the sun. That is not possible. The sun will rise. You just wait. So in other words, you can't force these moods of spontaneous attraction to happen by some practice. You have to wait for it to happen. Automatically, that spontaneous attraction will begin to develop. So, today we discussed Ragatmika Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. We presented an overview of the process of what is Raganuga Bhakti, and then the appropriate attitude towards the practice of Raganuga Bhakti for ISKCON, that we don't practice it outwardly, we wait for it to become qualified to do this. Any questions, comments, or additions at this point? Next week's class will be about more about Prema Bhakti, the highest level. And that one will be a little bit, I'm going to try and abbreviate it a little bit, because you should be reading this, not just relying on the presentation. And you should also understand that this is just nice to know information, but not something we're ready to practice. It will come after the stage of Raganuga. So Raganuga Bhakti, Raga Bhakti, and Raganuga Raga Bhakti is executed following the footprints of the devotees of Vrindavan. That is called Raga Bhakti, Krishna's personal associates. Not to become directly associated with Krishna's personal associate, but to follow in the footprints of Krishna's eternal associates, we can come to the stage of Raga Bhakti. That is called Parabhakti. That Parabhakti is required. So this Krishna conscious movement is gradually developing us to the stage of Raga Bhakti or Parabhakti. Then life is successful. Hare Krishna. So please take the time to catch up on your homework if you haven't been doing it. If you missed any lessons, I think we've got the first 4 lessons on YouTube now, I believe. Ekanath can tell you, but I think he told me first 4 are there. And then 7, 8, I think 9, 10 are also there. Or at least 8, 9, and 10. Any other questions or concerns? My review next week may be a little abbreviated because I gotta have to make sure the class moves quickly. I have to be completed by 3:45. Unless you all think we should start at 2. What is the opinion? Shubha Vilas, what do you think?
Prabhu, I think we're generally able to end by 3:45. Like today, it's almost 3:45, 3:50. So
Okay. All right.
we encourage everyone to join timely. So.
Yes. Okay. And our prayers are with you and your wife, Shubha Vilas Prabhu. Hope everything works out okay for you in your difficult times. So unless there's any other question or concern, next week will be our last class. And I will post some questions in the forum as to whether we want to go on to Nectar of Instruction. It's a brief 11 verses, I believe. And but we'll see. I'm not sure what the number of lessons are on that, but it's far less. But I do want to introduce this final exam, which I hope you're all prepared. If you've been doing the homework, it should be fairly easy. So thank you everyone for joining. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami. Thank you. Hare Krishna.